back to Tanach Tea. It has been a long layoff because we did not record any episodes over Sukkot, even though we spoke about maybe doing one in a Sukkah, but it's a very busy time, so it didn't happen. But we have a big announcement, which is that the live Tanach Teas, which last year Tanach Tea started as a live shiur, which all of you came to. And a lot of people have been requesting that starts up again. That was the story of David Hamelech. So that will be starting again Wednesday, and that will be put out in the weeks in between that we will be doing the Tanach Tea, the podcast. I will put out those live recordings of the shiurim on the story of David Hamelech. That will be going out in the weeks in between. So we'll be releasing an episode every week, Birchat Hashem. And if you did not listen to it last year, those old episodes, which is not as good quality in the recording, but worth listening to if you want to catch up on the story of David Hamelech, that you could find only on the YouTube channel of Tanach Tea. But every new episode will be there. So that's an exciting update. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor. This time, our sponsor does not want to be named, but he is a former student of mine. He's in college now. And he said, Batzlacha with the podcast, etc., etc. And he came to a couple of the live Tanach Teas last year. Maybe when he's back in town, he'll randomly pop up again. But thank you so much. You know who you are. And yeah, before we get started, this will probably be our last episode with the original cast, we'll call them, for like maybe an episode or two. Because some people won't be here, so we're going to have replacements. I thought this would be a good opportunity, if you're interested, to kind of say like some sort of like background information about yourself, just because probably the next person I'll have on, it'll be weird to still just like here and we don't say anything, because I'm going to ask them to be like, all right, tell the people who you are. So we never really did this, but anybody want to tell the people who you are and what you are drinking?
My name's obviously Keith, originally from Miami. That's where we're currently right now, assuming that we have a global audience, just so they know.
You get listeners in like 4 different continents, actually.
Actually?
Yeah.
4. Let me think. We got
to get Antarctica.
North America, South America.
Yeah, North America, South America.
Europe, why not?
Europe.
And Israel. I don't even know what continent you would... Asia?
Yeah,
makes sense. Anyways, born and raised here, been here almost all my life. Went to college a couple of years in Philadelphia, and good friends with Josh. Chavrusa, more than good friends and Chavrusas, not one or the other.
I push back on good friends, actually.
What? Push back?
Only Chavrusa.
Okay, gotta put more work in. Yeah, put more work in. Yeah. Do you have any more?
What makes
bios,
you qualified?
Like occupation, qualification.
What makes you qualified to be on Tanach Tea, Keith?
I'm excited to learn about Tanakh. That's it. And I have a book open in front of me. So if I see something interesting, I say it.
All right, awesome. Yeah. Or you want to?
I'll go for it. So I'm Or. I'm also from Miami, born and raised here my whole life. For those of you who don't know, Josh is actually my brother-in-law, married to my wonderful sister Tal. So I guess that's why I'm here. Just kidding. But I went to undergrad at the University of Central Florida in Orlando, and then I did dental school at University of Florida. Currently practicing here as a dentist. And I started getting into learning Parsha of the Week and Navi and Ketuvim in general the past year. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity for me to learn and explore and look at Torah in a different way, see how I can grow from it, see how I can also spread the message, spread the love, to encourage more people who want to come closer, because we're in trying times right now. I think enough said. I think we need to all come together, and I think that this podcast is one way to spread the love.
Wow, I love that.
And I'm all for it.
And you are. Debbie.
Tough to follow that one. I'm Debbie. I was born here in Miami. I was raised for a few years in Venezuela. And then I've been here my adult life. I'm a ENT, ear, nose, and throat nurse practitioner. And I'm here because one Shabbat, I was listening to Josh, who I know his wife for many, many years since she was a little kid. She's my sister's best friend. And I heard him give a shir about the similarities of Yitzchak and Shimshon. And I remember that, and I was like, wow, that's very amazing. Do you have
Flames.
Flames. Do you remember that, Keith?
Yeah.
And I was like,
I was there. I can confirm the...
And so I asked Josh, do you have any material to send me so I can listen? And so he sent me some recordings of Tanach Tea and David HaMelech, and the rest is history. I'm here as a fan and to learn. So thanks.
That shares too much flames for the podcast, so come to live Tanach Tea in order to hear that.
You have to listen to all of the first 286 episodes and we get to...
So I'll also say my brief story and what makes me qualified to do this, even though I'm not. But, I was, like everyone else here, also raised in Miami. And I went to Chafetz Chaim, and then I went to Yeshiva TJ for 3 years. And I was actually in the University of Miami for physical therapy. And I did 1 year there. And in physical therapy school, they make you do this thing called a micro-teach in the second semester. The first semester, you're just cutting up bodies. And like, you got to know the whole body by heart and et cetera, et cetera. But the second semester, they start introducing this idea that you're going to need to speak publicly. That you're going to have to present all sorts of things on physical therapy to your classmates and to other people. So they make the first one fun, where they do what they call a micro-teach, where they record you. You get to teach the class about anything you want. So like, there was a girl from Italy, and she like taught the class in 10 minutes, like how to make coffee. There was a Palestinian girl, she did how to make hummus. And there was like so many other, not that they were all food related. There were like one, I remember this guy named Jimmy. He's a great guy. Jimmy, shout out to you if you're listening to this. But Jimmy did how to survive a rip current. And then he planted a Kit Kat under everyone's chair the night before. And it was like, and now that you know how to survive a rip current, look under your seat, which that was just a total boss move. But anyway, I didn't know what to do. And I ended up deciding to do my micro teach on the story of David HaMelech. So I taught my physical therapy class the story of David HaMelech, and I realized
you ran through the whole summary from beginning
10 minutes. I tried to do as much as I can in 10 minutes. And I realized that was the thing I enjoyed by far the most in PT school. And I was looking around at my classmates, and I was like, in order to do this, you have to be, and Debbie knows this, as they've studied a lot, and Keith also as well, not in the medical field, but in order to go through such heavy schooling, you have to really be committed. It's very difficult. And I was looking around at my classmates, and I was like, they live and breathe physical therapy. This is Torah to them, and I don't think I can get there. So I was like, well, I think I can get there on Torah. So I make a joke that I switched from physical therapy to spiritual therapy, and that's when I took a job at KYHS in Boca, and love it ever. It's been amazing, and here we are now. We're doing a podcast, so that's kind of a little bit of my story. But before we get started on this new material, I said that we didn't do an episode on Sukkot, but the truth is, me and Debbie did an episode without mics there, because Debbie's father, threw down an awesome Simchat Beis HaShueva on Hoshana Rabbah night in the Sukkah. And while we were sitting there, we decided we're gonna get to it. We decided, like, I don't know, we're just like, I think I was like, name me your top 3 Ushpizin.
Yes, that's how it was.
Right? So we started like talking about like who our favorite Ushpizin are, which I said mine were David, Aaron, and Yosef. But I think I then asked Debbie, like, if you were to make a female Ushpizin list, who would it be? So we concurred on a list. I have like a one thing to add to the list now that I didn't tell Debbie yet. But Debbie, would you like to explain what the female Ushpizin list that we came up with is?
Yes. So we came up with the 4 Imaot have to make an entrance. So they're the first 4. Then we have Miriam, who represents Moshe and Aaron. Then we have we have Esther for Yosef, because she is a queen in a foreign land, just like Yosef was viceroy in Egypt.
Wow.
And has the like that quality of snoot, same as Yosef has like that quality with the whole episode of Potiphar. And then for David, we chose Hannah as the representation of Tefillah, and also Hannah is Shmuel's mother, who is the one who anoints David HaMelech.
Right. So just to add on that, we kind of like tried to think about it, like when you think of like Judaism, like the Ushpizin are like probably the first 7 people, you really like the foundational characters, and we tried to list women who would also be that, and it worked out perfectly that it lined up to the same foundational ideas. And I think these are really some of the most famous women in Judaism. So we had the Avot for the Imahot, we had Miriam for Moshe and Aaron, they like ran everything together, those three. And then what you just said with Chana and David, they're both like the epitome of prayer, one for female, one for male. And then Yosef and Esther, which was a great point by Debbie, that was a great call by you, that they were both Jews who were, foreign monarchs. But I was thinking about it, and I realized something. I realized we're missing someone off the list. And I realized the truth is the 4 Imahot to the 3 Avot, it's not really clean. I feel like we can take Rachel and Leah and just infuse them into Yaakov because it's kind of just like we have an extra one to play with. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and fuse that together, which means Miriam has to be Moshe or Aaron. And I was thinking Miriam would be Aaron. And I was thinking for Moshe is kind of the ultimate leader that we had. And I was thinking if we can't make a list of the 7 Ushpizin and leave off the only female leader in Tanakh, so that would be Devorah. So I was thinking Devorah would line up with Moshe. So that was kind of the edit that I would make.
Yeah.
But if anybody has any issues with our female Ushpizin
You're also
list.
forgetting Ruth.
So
we contemplated Ruth for
considered
Debbie.
Ruth, but I didn't think she was like a foundational idea.
I think she's
on
like
her own
Eov, like more of a
as a
story.
stone for David. Right? I didn't think she presented.
She proves his legitimacy.
Right, I didn't think she presented in the same way like Hannah is prayer and Esther is like. I thought these were more famous women than Ruth. Just also you could look at the Jewish names. Like a lot more Esthers and a lot more Hannahs and a lot more Devorahs than you do Ruth. You know what I'm saying? So I just thought like it wasn't as the same. But I thought Devorah should make the list. Quick recap: we were in middle of discussing Wednesday. We were in middle of discussing day 4. And we went into the calendar and all the intricacies and the analysis of the Jewish calendar, some quirks about it as well. I think we spoke about some things with Adar. We're just going to continue that conversation, and we're going to finish off Wednesday. That's all we're going to do today is we're going to finish off Wednesday. Speaking of Esther, why is Adar the leap month? Why is Adar the leap month in Judaism? Why not a different month? We spoke about why we need to have a leap month, which is that there's an 11-day discrepancy between the solar calendar and the lunar calendar. So we need every 7 out of 19 years, we need a leap month. It could be any month. Why make it Adar?
I think it's because, this is just a guess, but Pesach has to be the first event and it has to line up with the spring. So you have to make it's kind of like the buzzer beater
Right.
before the season starts.
So why does Pesach have to line up with spring?
Because that represents our exodus. That's when, it all happened.
So there's a pasuk in the Torah in Devarim, Perek
Shmor
16,
Aviv, right?
pasuk Aleph, the Aviv, right? The pasuk says, Shomer et chodesh ha'aviv, v'asisa Pesach L'Hashem Elokecha ki b'chodesh ha'aviv hotziach Hashem Elokecha miMitzrayim laila. Observe the month of Aviv, which, as we now know in Hebrew, with that we call that spring, and make Pesach for Hashem your God, because in the month of spring He took you out from Mitzrayim at night. And the idea over here would be, why is it in naming this month? It's weird because in the Torah the months go by. Nisan would be called Chodesh Rishon, not Aviv. Every month goes by a number, and over here it's being identified as spring. So I think the idea over here, there's a couple ways to understand it, but I think the understanding is that Aviv was actually the name of April, meaning the Egyptians used a sun calendar, a solar calendar, and Hashem, this pasuk is literally telling you that Pesach needs to be in the solar calendar of April. So it's the only thing on the Jewish calendar that's actually identified to something on the solar calendar. If not for this pasuk, our calendar would be just like the Muslim calendar. It would be strictly lunar, and Pesach would fall out a month early every year. This pasuk lets us know it needs to line up with the solar calendar. It needs to line up in spring, aka Aviv seems to be the Egyptian name for April, and that's how you know Nisan needs to be in April. So Adar would be as you said, the buzzer beater. And there's another proof as well, which is that in Megillas Esther, it says, B'yom echad b'shlosha asar l'chodesh, shnayim asar hu chodesh Adar. So it says on the 13th of the month, the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, which in contrast to the very pasuk before that, it just says on the 13th day of the first month, that's when the thing started. Meaning it didn't say that's the month of it just said the first month when it described Nisan. So this pasuk right after says the 12th month, which is Adar, which is letting you know that the 12th month needs to be Adar. And if you make any other month a leap month, then the 13th month will be Adar, but not the 12th month. When you make Adar the leap month, then Adar is the 12th month and the 13th month. So those are the two proofs as to the two scriptural sources as to why Nisan always needs to arrive in spring. So now I'm going to get to something. This is really cool. I was really excited to share this. This is like, honestly, kind of unbelievable. So have you ever heard of Birchat Hachama? Birchat Hachama.
Yeah, once every 30 years, no?
It is.
So Birchat Hachama is the following. Every 28 years, the sun completes a cycle and returns to the precise location in the sky where it was on the actual fourth day of creation. So every 28 years, the sun ends up in the same place. Now, in Nisan, which is, as we said, the creation of the world was in Nisan. In Nisan, this comes out on a Tuesday night, which is the beginning of Wednesday, which is really Wednesday, right? And as we said, what day was the sun created? Wednesday. This will always fall out on a Wednesday. And on Wednesday morning following that, by sunrise, we say the following bracha. Birchat Hachama l'keinu machalam oseh ma'aseh bereshis. So it happens every 28 years. And you say it at sunrise. And I actually remember the last time we said this. It was in 2009. I remember because my birthday is Isra Chag Pesach. And that year it came out on Erev Pesach. And I remember like there were a bunch of people there already like for a Chag and for my bar mitzvah. And I remember saying it in Surfside behind one of those buildings over there. By sunrise, by the pool, by the beach. And I remember saying Birchat Hachama in 2009. That was the last time it was said. So it's said every 20 years.
Is it just Oseh Ma'aseh Bereshit?
That's the bracha. I'm sure maybe there's some other prayers that are maybe Tehillim and things like that.
Kind of vibe, maybe.
Right, I'm sure there's something, but that's the main crux of it. And the next one, this is pretty cool. The next one will be in 2037. And I just told you the first one is my bar mitzvah. It's going to be on April 8th, 2037, which is my son Eliyahu's solar birthday, April 8th. And that's going to be his bar mitzvah when he's 13. And that's also Chaf Gimel Nisan, my Hebrew birthday. So it's on both of our birthdays, which I thought is pretty cool. And what's interesting is that...
But different birthdays.
Different birthdays. My Hebrew birthday, and even though he's the 29th of Adar, which is the last day of creation, as we spoke. So you see that works out with April 8th, that it comes out in this days of creation. But that means I think it means that April 8th was the original Wednesday that it was created, because in 2037 it's going to be April 8th. In 2065 it's going to be April 8th. In 2093 it's going to be April 8th. Last time in 2009 it was April 8th. The time before that in 1981 it was April 8th. The time before that in 1953 was April 8th.
Well, it makes sense because it's solar.
It's solar.
Calendar.
I only see April 7th and April 9th on the list as well. So little did I know that Eliyahu was born on like Birchat Hachama day, and I made a joke at his Brit that I should have named him Yeshua, because it worked out with like the sun. Now I really see that his name should have been, but it's my name. But that like his name, because Yeshua stopped the sun, and this is like, when you think of who's related to the sun, it's Yeshua. So, but I guess it's my Hebrew birthday also, so worked out, whatever. Thought that was pretty cool. I'll be 41 by the next one. He'll be 13. It's going to be trippy because he's like 6 months. Okay.
Should have named him Chama.
Should named him Birchat Hachama. Like
or just Cham.
Okay, now let's jump into some things. This is a very interesting conversation. Astrology, right? People are very into their signs. So most people think of the signs and they think of the month. But there are more than just a month. Every day has a different sign. And then also there are 7 influences by different planets and things like that have different signs throughout every hour of the day. So this information comes from Tractate Shabbat, and you could actually check up the hour of the day that you were born. So you might think, oh, like I'm whatever sign because I'm born in this month. Well, you're also whatever sign because you're born on this day, and you're also whatever sign because you're born on this hour. Which, if you think about it, you don't share a lot of signs with people because it's a lot. It's already a lot to break down. Besides the fact that you also, I think, take your parents into signs as well, meaning within your. So like you're pretty. But a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm a Capricorn, you're a Capricorn. Like, you're pretty unique. So we're going to go through the different signs. So here we have the 7 different influences. So you have the planet Saturn. If you were born during the hour of Saturn, that influences murder, poverty, destruction of cities and kingdoms, sickness and death. I think like Esav was born during the time of Saturn, and David Hamelech was born during the times of Saturn. David Hamelech represents
What does it
that
mean,
as
the
well
time of Saturn?
in the hour of Saturn, meaning these signs move through the sky, whatever that means, and every hour there's a different main influence. So literally the day you were born, you have hour by hour, it kept on switching which signs. You could check which sign you are. The next one is Jupiter, which influences life, peace, wealth, dominance, and status. Mars, actually I think David Hamelech was Mars. Mars influences war and strife, causing controversy between people. It also influences fire, water, destruction of homes, famine, heat waves, and storms. The next one is the sun.
How does it influence it? Like
It means
for the worse?
during this time, whenever Mars is dominant, that means things are more likely to happen like that. And it also means that a person born during that time, maybe his or her nature will be just a tad towards that, right? But you also have your month and your day, there's a lot that makes a person up. The next one is the sun. The sun influences wisdom, science, understanding, craftsmanship, penmanship, makes all kinds of flowers, trees, plants, and things like that grow from the ground. The next one is Venus. That influences grace, kindness, desire, love, fruitfulness for humans, animals, and plants. Mercury influences the light that separates day from night, and it also exerts a beneficial influence for people who travel from place to place for business. So next time you're doing a business deal, do it during Mercury. Check Maizmanim. And then the last one is...
Do we have a Maizmanim for this?
No way.
There's no way to...
There's no way, but I'm sure there are
you
websites.
do your
you can
own
find.
calculations.
Yeah. And then the next one is the moon, which influences the keys of heaven and earth. So to recap, there's 7 influences: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the moon. Those are the 7 influences.
Sounds like I'd want to be under the sun.
Yeah, I hear. I think I checked, and I was born during the hour of Venus, which is grace, kindness, desire, love.
Oh, of course. I didn't even need to check. You didn't even check.
I need to redo the math. I did this math like a while ago, and I don't exactly remember. That could be my day that I was born, which is Friday. Let's have to see. But it's interesting that with all these lights, the what's known between these 7 influences as the 2 great lights is the sun and the moon. But the moon, if you think about it, in comparison to these lights, are not greater than Jupiter, all these planets, etc., etc. So why does the Torah refer to as the moon as a great light?
I mean, from our perspective, it is a great light.
Exactly. So
It's close to us.
right. It's
the second
It's
greatest
from our
light.
perspective.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
Also, I heard that I think the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, but the moon is 400 times closer than the sun.
Yeah, which is why a lunar eclipse can happen. Solar eclipse can happen where the moon perfectly overlays the sun, because it's the same exact math. If not for that, then it wouldn't be possible. Mm-hmm. Which can only happen around Rosh Chodesh, because that's when the moon is in between there, which I think we spoke about last time. Anyways, this part, I have no idea what this means. I'm just going to tell you the information. Paralleling the 7 astronomical bodies that shine in the sky, there are 7 bright metals which shine on Earth: silver, mercury, copper, gold, iron, lead, and tin.
I wonder which one Mercury.
Silver is influenced by the moon. Mercury is influenced by Mercury. Is that what you were wondering? Copper by Venus, gold by the sun, iron by Jupiter, lead by Saturn, and tin by Mars. And then all the other...
No love for Pluto.
Wait, 1 second. All the other substances that are found in the Earth are paralleled by the countless other stars that are seen in the sky. So maybe Pluto does have a substance out there somewhere. Now, when we talk about our signs, we're usually talking about the 8th sign, meaning those are the 7 signs, and there's an 8th sphere above the 7 spheres, and within the 8th sphere, that contains the 12 zodiac signs that go month by month. So you have a sign hour by hour by these 7 signs, and then the 8th sphere is the monthly sign, which we can go through them. They are Nisan, which is Aries. The Hebrew name is Teleh. Did I say that correct? Anybody know that?
Tele, yeah.
Teleh. It's written here in English, so I have to So Teleh, which is the ram or sheep. You have Iyar, which is...
Yeah, I think you could skip it.
I could skip it.
It has no meaning.
People know this. I think it's a waste of time. But okay, so we have the 12 zodiac signs. We're not going to go through them because you can search up the 12 zodiac signs and the Hebrew words and what they are. But I want to say something that I think is super important regarding this, that people don't realize this. So a lot of times people will look up their sign. What happens if somebody is born like May 21st, May 22nd? What does the Western world tell them? It tells them you're either Taurus or Gemini, right? Mm-hmm. You're in between. And the truth is you're not in between. The Hebrew month, this is a moon star situation. The Hebrew month perfectly parallels the zodiac signs, meaning whatever your Hebrew birthday is your sign. The sign goes with the Hebrew birthday, meaning Aries is Nissan. Why do they tell you Aries is March 20th to April 20th? Because on average, Nissan will fall out in between March 20th and April 20th. So for someone who's not Jewish and they're stuck on the solar calendar, for a non-Jew, they have no way of identifying if they're Aries or not if they're born April 20th, April 21st. But if you're Jewish, you could check your Hebrew birthday. That is your sign. It's not an either or. Your sign is your Hebrew month. So you can look up the Hebrew months and the signs. If you thought until now, oh, I'm in between a sign, you're not. Just check up your Hebrew month. That is your sign. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think a lot of people make that mistake.
Can I ask a question about what you were talking before? When you say, so you mentioned like 7, like hour by hour. Is it like each hour is allocated one of these, like the Saturn, the Jupiter, and then it like repeats throughout the day? Is that how it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every hour there's a main influence, and these things go through cycles.
Okay. So it cycles throughout. Okay.
It cycles throughout. Yeah. Now there are also each of these elements are broken down into fire, air, water, and earth. So there's different opinions as to which ones are which. One opinion is like random, that like Aries, Sagittarius, am I saying that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Leo are fire, Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra are air. Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are water, which we could name the Hebrew months for these, but we won't because we could search it up. Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo are earth. That's like one opinion. Another opinion is that it just goes in order. Like the first 3 months are fire, meaning Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan, and then the next one are air, etc., etc., etc. So those are the two different opinions. And the reason why these are called mazalot in Hebrew, the reason why this is called your mazal, now you might think of that as it's like your luck, and this is your luck, which is true. But the Ma'amlua says that the shoresh for mazal comes from the word azal, which means to move, and these signs are constantly moving. So that's the source of this. Now we're gonna name some. This whole conversation is trippy, but I think it's cool information, so I'm just gonna throw everything out there. He says that, remember we spoke about that there's 7 rikiot, there's 7 levels to heaven. Mm-hmm. He says underneath each level, there's the souls of the 70 nations of the world. So there's 10 nations under each level. And under each level, there's a guardian angel overseeing each nation. And all these are ruled by the 12 signs of the Zodiac. So the other nations, their destiny is actually ruled by the Zodiac signs, which is why you hear of, like in the story of Moshe, that the Egyptians were really good at seeing the future because the stars do actually give away the information. The catch is there's one nation that their mazal doesn't really work with these things, and that's the Jewish people. So even though it still give him accurate information about coming from water, and that his downfall will be water. Moshe's downfall was eventually water because he hit the rock, but we'll talk about that in episode 97. Okay, every day of the week has a different sign, so I'm going to tell you that now. So the sign of Sunday is Leo, meaning you might say I'm a Leo based off my month. You're also a Leo. You could be double Leo if you're born on a Sunday, let's say. Or you could be like you're an Aries and you're a Leo. So the sign of Sunday is Leo, and overseeing it is the sun. So remember those properties of the sun? That applies to Sunday. And wouldn't you know, it's called Sunday. I feel like that's not a coincidence. Guess which one is Monday? And every day has an angel. So Sunday's angel is Raphael. So Sunday is Leo, the sun, Raphael. Monday, Cancer, the moon, Monday, and Gavriel. Tuesday is Aries and Scorpio, and it's Mars, and the angel is Samael. Wednesday is Gemini and Virgo, and that is Mercury, and the angel is Michael. Thursday is Sagittarius and Pisces, and overseeing them is Jupiter, which is called Tzedek in Hebrew, and the angel is Tzidkiel. And then Friday is Taurus, and Libra, and overseeing them is Venus.
Libra.
whatever. And overseeing them is Venus. As you can see, I'm not into the horoscope signs. And overseeing them is Venus, which is the angel Anel. And then Shabbat is Capricorn and Aquarius. Overseeing them is Saturn. Wouldn't you know Shabbat is known as Saturday? And that's angel is Kapsil. Something cool about that, you should know, it's not a coincidence, obviously, that the days of the week line up with that. So Shabbat is called Saturday. It's in English, it's Saturday. And Vashti actually used to worship the god of Saturn. And she would make her Jewish maidens dress in all black and worship Saturn on Saturday. Like, that was her thing, which was in very stark contrast to the Jewish people at the time. Nowadays, going to a shul and people wearing black. But in the times of Tanakh, people would wear really colorful clothing on Shabbat, like Yosef style. So she would dafka make them wear black because that was like the opposite of what you wore on Shabbat. So it's just interesting how the Jewish culture is completely the opposite now, where it's like you walk into shul and like most men are wearing a black suit and et cetera, et cetera. But that's just an interesting story about Saturn and how it's related to Shabbat. The Mamleh says something very interesting over here, which I don't know if this is scientifically accurate, but he says that there are 1,022 visible stars in the sky. So if you're listening to this right now and it's nighttime, you can step outside and start counting. But apparently there's 1,022 visible stars in the sky, which he says that
now there's much
gematria.
less. Now there's like, if you're in a city, there's probably like 4 or 5.
Right. So I'm assuming this moves also. I guess maybe he's saying that's the max, like in the ideal circumstances. I don't know. But obviously not using like a telescope or anything. But he says this number, 1,022, that gematria is Brit Kodesh, which means holy covenant, right? The bris, which he says that lets you know that if you have a Brit, right, if you're Jewish, these things don't apply to you. The mazal doesn't apply to you, meaning you can use tefillah and things like that to get out of your mazal. So interesting thing over there. Another thing he says is that every star has an angel ruling over it. And the reason why the stars only shine at night is to make the moon feel better about being made smaller than the sun, right? If you remember, we spoke about they used to be equal, and stars are kind of like sidekicks to the moon because now he's relegated to a smaller role.
I'm definitely going to look my things up after this podcast.
Yeah, you got to look up your month, which most people know. You got to look up your day, which we just said. So like I was Venus from Friday, so I think I might have misremembered that I was Venus by the hour. I don't remember what I was by the hour. Yeah, you go to check up hour by hour. But that...
Josh, you're Venus in the sun.
I think
I was Mercury, actually.
I think the most obvious question of the 4th day is like why? Like why wouldn't Hashem just leave the lights on, right? He created light earlier, right, so to speak. There was even creation of land and everything going dandy. Why does Hashem sort of contain light into these luminaries and then shine them that way? That's the greatest question.
Like you're saying, why not just finish the job on the first day?
Exactly. And the psukim answer it, actually. Lehavdil ben hayomu ben halayla vayu le'otot u'modim liyamim v'shanim. Like the whole entire purpose, it seems like, of these luminaries, of stars, of the sun, is time. Is for us to be able to have a concept of time that if we look up, we can see that things are moving, and today isn't the same as yesterday, and sometimes today is this, there's cycles going on and things are at the same spot that they were at this amount of time ago. And that, so when we develop concepts of years and months and days, etc. So I find it very interesting that we have like this fixation on the astronomy and looking at where stars align at certain times of the year. There's something like special. I feel like it's like when you say there's a specific sign to a month. On the one hand, that's arbitrary for sure. On the one hand, I find it interesting that we're linking that at a certain time of the year that there's a certain power. It's like time isn't an arbitrary thing. Like wherever you are currently in a specific time, whether that's a year, a month, a day, an hour. That's not something arbitrary. It's not just a number that you're calculating in order to have trains and in order to make it work at the same time. No, time just like place affects you, time also affects you. And I think that's, to me, that's what that's the message I think of like all this astrology stuff, is that time isn't just some arbitrary thing. Like whatever month that you're residing in has an effect. Whatever day. I remember my coworker once telling me, like, just saying casually, like, weeks are arbitrary. And like, there's really not much to say against that. Like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like why 7? Like, how do you decide such a thing? Now, of course, obviously the story of creation in general is that 7 isn't arbitrary. And the story of what you're saying, that each day has an angel and each day has a certain consolation, is that each day has an effect, and that the week isn't arbitrary, and that Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni isn't arbitrary. So that's what I took from this.
So Keith, I want to take what you just said, and I want to, I have like a way to like think about it that I think sums up what you're saying, which is that the Jewish calendar is alive, meaning when we celebrate July 4th in America, there's nothing inherently special about July 4th, 2024, 2025, that because a great event, independence, took place in 1776, there's potential on this July 4th for that to happen. No, it's just an anniversary. But the Jewish calendar is alive in the same way the solar calendar is alive with weather. Meaning on July 4th, 1776, in America, presumably it was hot. And that's alive. In July 4th, 2024, it will be hot. The physical weather is different in July than in December. And so too the Jewish calendar. Hanukkah is not a anniversary of the Hanukkah that happened. There is a spiritual weather that goes on with these signs. There's an actual weather forecast of certain spiritual ideas. And when you celebrate Hanukkah, you can re-tap into those ideas. When you celebrate Pesach, you can re-tap into those ideas. Of is a dangerous time, not because something dangerous like the Beit HaMikdash happened, 2,000 years ago. It's because it's inherently the weather is dangerous, the spiritual weather, which is why Pesach is when it is. Why is Pesach the 15th of Nisan? Because they worshipped the sheep, they worshipped the ram, and they looked at the ram as its strongest. When was the weather best for the ram? When should their god, the ram, be at its strongest? During the month of Aries, by the full moon. And that's why Hashem Dafka said you're going to do the Carbon Pesach then, right? And when we celebrate Pesach, it's real, it's alive. So I think that's what you were saying, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, how do you understand the concept of mazal, right? It seems a little foreign to us, like the month you're born in has an influence on you. You could say you easily say the same thing about place. Like you hear a person's born in a specific country or a specific sort of climate, and you could already start making certain assumptions. They're more likely to be into this and into that, and they're more likely to have this kind of culture and this kind of culture based on being in a hot climate or in a cold climate. Right. So you make those calculations based off place. So I think the story here is you also can make those calculations based off the time that a person is born in, that the time that they occupy, because it has the same effect. That's, I think, the message.
Well, just to add to that the first mitzvah that we have as the Jewish nation is time, right? Is Rosh Chodesh, which is like even more so, right? Putting this importance not only to the time and the lunar cycle, but he speaks about this a lot, about like tapping into the energy of each of these versions of cycles, whatever they are, right? The days, the hours, the months. And so like that's the first thing that we're commanded to do, which, yeah.
There's also something I wanted to add to the concept of a week, is that scientifically and, according to the Torah, there's evidence for a day, right? A day makes sense. You have a 24-hour period. You have the sun, right, which is daylight, and you have, it's really evening and then daylight. You have the concept of a year, which is Earth's revolution around the sun. Day is also Earth's rotation around the sun. And then you have the concept of a month, of course, which is about the moon, from the new moon to the full moon and back to the new moon again. But there's no actual scientific concept, like he said, of a week.
So I'm happy you brought up the week, because I think the 7-day week is a proof of Hashem. Because as Keith was saying, time is not like a month. The reason why it's called a month is because it comes from the word moon. Now, the solar calendar.
Month. We should call it month.
The solar calendar
Start a
obviously.
movement.
The solar calendar obviously does not actually work with the lunar cycle, but it is trying to mimic it as close as possible. There are 12 lunar cycles in the solar calendar, and it's trying to make it as close to the 29.5 as possible. And the year is not some arbitrary time. We're keeping track of the sun, right? Or the earth going around the sun, etc., etc. A day is one rotation of the earth. The week, as Or was saying, is totally a made-up time. It's totally fake. The only place a week comes from is what we're doing right now, which is the 7 days of creation. If you think about it, considering it's a made-up mode of time, and you could break a month down into 1 week if you want. You could break a month down into 2 weeks if you want. There should be, in different locations around the earth, different modes of time for a week. It's the only fake time that there is, but yet there isn't. And there have been cultures that have tried it before, try it a 10-day week, and it's never worked out, it's never caught on. And I think this proves Hashem, because Hashem knew, obviously, that he was going to scatter the Jews around the world. And can you think about how insane it would be if in America there was an 8-day week? You go to France, there was a 10-day week, and you go to, think about how different Japan is than America. Why they have a 7-day week also? Like, you would think, honestly, that they wouldn't. It's such a different culture. Why do they have the same exact week? It'd be so hard to do Shabbos if I think the week and the fact that the whole world operates, even though they're not religious, a lot of the world, they operate by the 7 days of creation. I think that proves Hashem. I think that's Hashem just hooking us up and making things a lot easier for us.
I loved your point, Josh. I just want to say.
Yeah, I want to add. I want to flip your point. Your point is amazing, but because it's amazing, I think the flip will be good.
Yeah, hit me.
So you said the week is made up.
Yeah.
And then the other units of time are at least not made up. The assumption being because they're based off the astrology. They have basis in some physical observations.
It's not based. It's exact.
Well,
right? It's not based. It's literally timing.
Well, we're like I could decide that like that light turning on and off is a unit of time, right? We're basing off astrology. So actually, if you look at the Torah, if you just look at this first parak of the Torah, it's actually the opposite. Really, the original unit of time, right? Because we don't get until day 4, we don't get any of the luminaries. We don't get the day. We don't get the hours, which is really just splitting the, right? We don't get the month, no moon yet. We don't get the year, right? The luminaries don't exist till the 4th day. To arrive at the 4th day, you need time. So what was the original unit? Of course, creation began as a move one day to the other through the 7-day week, meaning the original unit of time was the week, and was only within that unit of time of the week was the creation of all the luminaries that created the time. Meaning the only reason all the other times have a basis is because of the week, is I think the way to flip it.
So, and to prove your point, I mean, the pasuk literally says, pasuk Yudalid, when it says, Hashem says that he's going to, create these 2 great lights. So it first says, lahavdu ben hayom u'ben halayla, to separate between day and night. And then it says, vahayu, and to be, lo'atot u'lama'adim u'layamim v'shanim. So you see, like the one of the main points of the sun and the moon and all these things is to set time. So it's literally the function. It's like the main function, maybe you could argue, more than the light or main function is for these things to be the standard bearers for time. But as you were saying, the original actual time is the week
before
first.
The creation of the time before the creation. That the time by which the creation of time was made in was the week.
Right. But my point was that the rest of the world has no choice but to respect these modes of time, because it's just keeping track of nature. It's logical. It makes sense. You're not going to make a different year or make a different month. Like, that's a year is, on August 25th, you're in the same exact location with the sun as it was last August 25th. So that means crops will be similar and weather will be similar, etc., etc. You are keeping track. It's like like the world's a business. And the same thing with the moon. You're keeping track of the tide. There's no reason, except for believing that it comes from Hashem, there's no reason to stick with the week. So it's illogical that the whole world just does it.
By the way, halacha respects what you're saying in terms of the week being arbitrary. Meaning, if you were to be stranded in an island and you lost track of the days, how do you know when Shabbat is?
You just restart, right?
Yeah, right. You obviously know when Shkia is, when sunset is,
keep
right?
track.
You just
You can
look
start-
out
you can
outside.
start.
You could tell when it is in the month. Assuming, interestingly enough, you actually could lose track of the months, but you can't, because you know when it's springtime, and you know when it's, and then once you catch when the beginning of spring is, you can guess when Nissan is, and you're back on track.
Right.
So the only thing you wouldn't be able to catch through observation, other than finding other humans, is weeks. So what you do is that you actually do start counting 7 days from the time, I guess, you wake up from.
You just have to know what day you got stuck on and just
And
stick
count
with it.
yourself.
By the way,
yeah.
a lot of people don't know this, but there was a time when the world switched the calendars, and you might all know this, but there was they realized, I think somewhere around the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, somewhere in the Middle Ages, they realized that their solar calendar was off, and they were like 11 days behind the actual tracking of the sun. And I don't remember which king of which country did it, but he skipped 11 days. Like he went from like December 19th to January 1st, I think. I don't remember which 11 days it was. You can search this up. I think it might have been like King Arthur, maybe. I don't remember. I don't remember any of the details of this, but just trust me, this happened. The world skipped 11 days to because it is math. They were off. Their numbers were off for like 1,500 years. And they realized that what we are calling, December 5th is no longer December 5th. It's a different relationship with the sun. And eventually we're just going to keep on moving and keep on moving. So the world actually just skipped 11 days. And I think if you had your birthday that year, that just sucked for you. But I'm just going to throw out some information that the Mumlo says over here to end off our discussion on Wednesday. It's obviously a very cool discussion, very trippy. It's going to be a lot of just random information. And some of it is I don't fully understand, but you can let me know what you think. So he says the following. He says, why should a person even discuss this? Why should a person even contemplate all the luminaries and et cetera, et cetera? And he says, if you do this, the reason why is because if you do this, that'll give you a stronger commitment to Judaism. Because the more you look at the astronomical bodies and you realize how vast and great this world is, the more you'll realize how insignificant and how small you are. And that is why Moshe, he says, is the most humble person ever. Because true humbleness, dumb people think they're smart, think they know a lot. But the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. So it could be a daunting task. I remember I was at Nissim Black's house.
Like in Kohelet,
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So like the wisest man ever, he literally says that, right? I remember one time I was at Nissim Black's house, and he was telling me I was doing a Friday night dinner in Shana Gimel at his house. It was like a 7-hour meal, and it was awesome. He's like Mamash Tzaddik, Nissim Black. But he was saying his conversion story, and he first started off as Christian, then became Muslim, then eventually became Jewish. And he was saying that one of the things that inspired him to continue in converted to Judaism was when he realized at some point it hit him, it's like, this is endless. I will never know. He's like, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know and how I will never know. And he said that just made me want to learn more, which I remember when I heard that in Shana Gimel, I was like, that's unbelievable that I think a lot of people would naturally go and be like, I can't tackle this. Like, forget it. I'm not converting. And his drive was like, no, the more I know, the more I just want to, the more I realize I'll never get there, and how much, right? The more you learn about something, the more whatever, but he wanted to keep going. So that's what makes a person truly humble, is when they realize how vast everything is and how they don't know anything. But you brought up Kohelet, and the Mamluas actually says that Shlomo Hamelech was the only person who understood the universe as much as a human being can understand it, and he understood exactly how things work, how the astronomical bodies affected things with the plants and the world, and he was able to grow like anything he wanted because he was able to kind of mess with the system versus normal people. Like, you could only grow certain things in certain locations.
He was just a walking greenhouse.
He knew everything. So, okay, fine. Now, he says that every morning you should meditate on this, the Mamlu is. Every morning you should meditate on the Hashem's wonders, right? And that will give you a stronger desire to praise Hashem. And he says the following. He says, living in this world, you are immersed in the physical, and you cannot perceive the divine presence. And he says that all of creation is divided into 3 categories. The first category are things that consist of matter and form and eventually die. right? All living things die. Trees, etc., metal even, etc., etc. He says the second category, it's permanent physical things, but it's physical things, but they last forever, like the planets and stars, etc., etc. And then the third category, he says, that encompasses entities that consist of form without matter. These are the angels. So he says when a prophet says that he has seen an angel made of fire, he's only speaking allegorically. Angels do not have bodies like human beings, but are ethereal forms which cannot be perceived. So he starts saying how every angel has some advantage over another angel that human beings don't have, which depends on their status with relation to the others. So in the case of angels, the advantage is intrinsic, since one has greater intelligence than another and recognizes its creator to a much greater degree. Again, I have no idea what this stuff means. I mean, it's painting some sort of a picture, and he starts explaining that the angels' names are based off of this, that every angel that is sent to heal is called Raphael, right? Every angel that is sent to help is called Azriel, right? And the same is true of other missions, etc., etc. And then he actually starts saying how fast certain angels can travel. He says the angel Raphael can travel from one end of the world to the other with a single flap of its wings, whatever that means. Gabriel needs 2. He says Eliyahu needs 4, which I find fascinating that Eliyahu is in the list of angels now. Like Eliyahu Hanavi somehow became an angel. Like he's not a human being. It's crazy. But that's how he gets around Seder night. That he can go across the world in 4 flaps. Pretty awesome. And the angel of death, 8. So Eliyahu Hanavi somehow is faster around the earth than the angel of death. But it does say that in a time of plague, if Hashem is angry, then the angel of death can go in one bound across the world. So which, when people's sins are bad, etc., etc., which kind of makes sense. It's like when death is rampant, it's literally traveling faster. It's Hashem sped it up. It's going 8 times as fast. He says the angel Uriel can go in a single bound. And he says that there are many angels that are even greater, etc., etc. And he says all of these entities recognize Hashem's greatness according to the level of their perception. But none of them can grasp the infinite essence of God. Okay. Why did God create the sun, moon, and stars, the astronomical bodies? Why did he create it specifically on Wednesday? You could have said maybe it should be before Tuesday, before the plants, the seas, the dry land. You would think, honestly, if you were making the world, you'd probably think it'd be one of the first things you do, sun, moon, and stars. The reason why is because logically you would think to put the sun before plants, because of course plants need the sun. So Hashem Dafka did it the opposite to show you.
But light was also there already.
No, the light was gone already. The light from day one was gone, was put into the Rakia. It wasn't on Earth. So Earth was dark on day 3 when plants were created, and yet they thrived. To teach you that the plants don't actually get their power from the sun. The sun is a medium, which Hashem supplies the plants. So that's why it's like that. That's why it's flipped. But another reason why we discuss these astronomical bodies, as we were saying before, is because we can't know anything about God himself. And this is kind of like the closest we can get to, appreciating Hashem's might and his wonders. And you could, when you see crazy nature, naturally people usually go like, wow, like God's incredible, right? So that's kind of the idea. Another interesting thing that he says over here is that just like the sun gives light to the moon, rich people should give light to poor people. They should give money to poor people. So like meaning if you are rich, it's not because of you, meaning the sun isn't greater than the moon because the sun did anything, right? It's because Hashem, made it that way, even though it wasn't even planned to be that way. And it's on you to supply the light. The sun doesn't have to give light to the moon, but it does. So if you are rich, it's on you to supply that, to pay that forward to the moon, right? To poor people. 2 more things, and then we'll stop here, and then we'll take some last thoughts. Angels are half fire and half water, even though we just said that when prophets say that, the angels of fire, it's not real, but he does say that angels are half fire and half water. And that is why in Eov, there's a quote from Pasuk Bet in Perik Chaf He, which says, Oseh Shalom Bromamav, right? Now we say that, of course, that just those last 3 words, we say that in the Amidah, but that says that Hashem makes peace in the heights, meaning that even though fire and water don't get along, an angel is precisely somehow half fire and half water, so it doesn't make sense, but Hashem creates peace between things up there that don't make sense. And lastly, before we end off on Wednesday, the reason why Wednesday ends off saying that Hashem saw that it was good, meaning every day, even though, yes, it was complete, but we still need to kind of, every day we have to justify Hashem saying it was good. And the reason why specifically it says it for Wednesday that Hashem said it was good is because it was perfect. Meaning had the sun been 1 inch up or 1 inch down, the world would be frozen or hot, right? Like the whole world, I mean, that's another thing that I think proves Hashem is the preciseness of this, right? With like the 400, like you were saying before, with the moon.
Can't be any other way.
400, it's like, you're talking millions of light years away, and it's like had it been moved a little bit up or down, the whole thing doesn't work. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, the sun moves an inch, that's it. Like,
right,
we freeze,
Right. If the sun was also a little bit larger, if it was a larger star or a smaller star, right? If it was larger, the whole world would burn. Just quickly, I want to end on this. We'll see if we have enough time to include it, but we got another email, and this time we will be reading emails at the end of the episode, not at the beginning. But this email was in response to episode 4, which is closely related to our conversation. He says, realizing that the Jewish calendar represents a combination of lunar and solar years, and therefore consists of 13 months instead of 12 every about 4th year, brought to mind the fact that Israel started out as 12 tribes, but Yosef's sons doubled his portion and were each considered tribal patriarchs in their own right. So there were originally 12 tribes that became 13, just like the months of the Jewish year, which is an interesting point, which is that whenever we count the tribes, there's really 12. We'll like switch up the count, right? When Moshe gives his brachas at the end of the Torah, he disincludes Shimon and makes Yosef into 2. Yaakov, sometimes Levi's not included, and then Ephraim and Manasseh are included. Ephraim becomes Yosef. So it is interesting how that works out, that there are 12 months, but it could be broken into 13. So that's very interesting. He also says over here that 13 is the gematria of Echad. And he's once heard that Yaakov said Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad when he saw Yosef, perhaps because he realized that Yosef was going to make 2 tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, so now there's 13 tribes, which is the idea of Echad. He also says that 12 and 13 also is bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah, so that's that correlation as well, which is an interesting point. And he also says there are 4 stages of the solar year, which dictate the 3 agricultural festivals, right? Shalosh Regalim. And he says that corresponds to the 4 imahot and the 3 avot, as well as every 4th year being a leap year and every 3 non-leap years after every. So it's just some numbers that fits over here. That is it for this episode of Tanach Tea. Thanks for the email. And you can continue to email Tanach Tea with some thoughts, and
like and subscribe below.
Share it with your friends.
Comment. Who are your 7 women Ushpizin?
Yeah, honestly, I think our list is pretty irrefutable.
Oh, our list. I didn't sign in on this. You know,
I was looking at
7.
you when I said our. I was looking directly at you. So, I mean, do you have a case for any other woman to make this list? Golda Meir?
I say maybe Serach.
Over here.
Serach? No. Serach is a very important character, but I don't think she provides a foundational idea the way these...
You just live long, that's it.
She was an amazing woman in her own right. There's a lot of great men who don't make the Ushpizin list. I just think these women that we said are certain foundational ideas that correspond to the men as well. But Keith looks like he's ready to go to sleep, so we'll end this here, and I'll see you at the live Tanach Tea in a week. For all those who will join, we will have cookies, we will have sushi, and we will of course have tea.